a lot of times those are not very concise. Those don't let us map to the market to see where this job would really fit. And the consistency is an issue when we're out recruiting for jobs, identifying what a job does. So we're really trying to have more concise, succinct job description. We're also creating a center of excellence for compensation so that as we're looking at jobs, we're able to determine where does this job fall in the market. Having a centralized resource so that that information can be provided so that we can make informed decisions about compensation. So that's one of the other areas that we are trying to accomplish with this project. We also want to make sure that the new structure is responsive to employee needs, whether that be benefits or compensation, making sure that we can attract, retain, and basically be able to develop employees on campus. So when you boil down all the things that we're trying to do for this project, what we're trying to provide to the campus, it really comes down to these areas. So wanted to set that as the foundation as we move forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Diane Blaskowski. She is the Talent Rewards Director within the Office of Human Resources, and she's going to go over the timeline of the project.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. This is the overall project timeline, and as you can see, everything to the left of the green line has either been completed or we're midstream with it. So just to point out a couple of things. The employee mapping process is currently underway, and by the end of this week, all of the mapping, meaning that every employee at UW will be mapped to a new title within that new job framework that Mark just described. You can see the bullet point on top that says the SJD library is posted, and we're going to give you a little glimpse of that this morning. But like Mark mentioned earlier, it is posted. It's out there for everyone to be able to go ahead and look at the job titles as they are currently. Just one caveat to that, it is a work in progress, so it's a draft document. We'll be changing as feedback is received and we identify additional SJDs that need to be added. So that will be a moving document. Then across the top swim lane, you're going to see that the compensation structure is being finalized, and it'll be finalized by March-ish, springtime. And what that is the actual salary scale itself, the salary structure. We have a team right now that's busily working on that. It will be done by spring. And the long-term compensation strategy. That's a strategy that we will begin creating at the end of the year once we know what the salary structure is starting to look like. And that compensation structure or the strategy will really be a build-out for long-term, more than a couple of years, to look at any paid issues that we find when we're building the structure. So if we find issues in the strategy, it will have ways to mitigate those different things. The second swim lane is really the campus partnership. You can see all the training going on. So currently we have training for HR staff right now going on. We'll have manager training. So anybody in here who is a manager will have some fairly robust manager training coming up. So please make sure to attend that. And then as Mark mentioned, the appeals process will happen shortly thereafter we actually implement in the spring. The bottom swim lane talks about the benefits strategy. So that's something that began at the beginning of the project and goes on throughout the implementation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that implementation and what's going to happen with that, what kind of recommendations will be made, and how soon that will take place. So again, to recap the highlights, in November, we're going to be having HR training as well as manager training. The library is posted. It is online this morning. In December, position descriptions will be created, and that's next up, so we'll talk about that. And employee conversations will begin, where there will be a manager-employee conversation for all employees across UW-Madison campus. In the spring, the title and salary structure will be implemented. And then staff will receive letters, so you will all receive a letter that will come out as soon as implementation occurs in the spring, letting you know of the title, the salary range, the job group that the title's in, etc. So you will be informed about that. So changes after we implement in the spring. On the left-hand side in the black box are the things that will be changing. So the job framework, as Mark mentioned, we're creating a whole new framework for jobs. That'll all be changing, as well as that salary structure that we are currently putting together right now. Working titles will be changing, and how it will change is most of you probably have a working title. In fact, how many of you do currently right now use a working title? Yeah, the majority. Okay, so you will still be able to use that working title, but why it's changing and on the left side box is because it will be renamed to business title. That's the new modernized best practice type of compensation verbiage, so it'll now be the business title, but still the same type of working title that you enjoy now. Position descriptions will be changed. Currently, we all have position descriptions that are maybe 5-6 pages in length and talk about just about everything you could possibly do, and many times don't even make sense as to the work we currently are really doing. So those will change. And then we have developed some salary administration guidelines. These are guidelines for our HR community to be able to administer best practice compensation when it comes to pay raises, increases, those kinds of things across school, college, and division for our employees. After implementation, what's staying the same is on the red box, right-hand side of your screen, your job duties. So what you currently do right now, you will continue to do. So no change in your job. Base pay. TTC made a commitment from day one. We would not decrease anyone's base pay, and we hold to that. So your base pay will remain the same. Reporting relationships. Whoever you report to, your supervisor right now, that will not change. Performance goals, professional development goals, those kinds of things that you have established along the way, those will remain the same. Nothing changes there. Your employee category, so university staff, academic staff, those kinds of categories will remain the same, as well as statutory benefits will remain the same. So kind of an interesting grid here. It talks about the numbers of people we've had in the different work streams help us with TTC. So we aren't a team that has been doing this in a vacuum over at Park Street. We've had over 22,000 of you helping us, and for that we are very appreciative. Many people have helped us actually draft and complete the SJDs. They've helped us review them. All of those different categories show the different places where all of you have helped TTC to be where we are today. So we've had some face-to-face examples that are right up here. We have campus forums. A lot of you raised your hands. You've been to them before. We have them April. We had them in July. We have them now. We will have more in February. So the campus forums. We have a lot of engagement with shared governance in academic university staff. A lot of governance committee meetings. We do this every week, so a lot of engagement there. UW-Madison leadership. We meet with UW-Madison leadership, the chancellor, Vice Chancellor Heller, the provost, the deans, etc., on trying to make sure that everyone is kept in the loop about TTC. Our human resources community has been invaluable. So all of our partners on the HR side of the house, we meet with them on a very regular basis. We have an HR advisory group of HR community partners. Been very helpful. Managers. So we work with managers and we present at forums like this to our campus supervisor network. And that's been very helpful for us. Great questions. Helps us to know what we need to get out there for information. Schools, colleges, and divisions. We have road shows. We have individual group meetings with many of our schools, colleges, and divisions. Again, very helpful for TTC because we hear what it is that needs to happen. We have a lot of training and a lot of focus groups. So many, many different ways we've had face-to-face engagement with everyone across campus. So why standard job descriptions? You've heard this time and time again that we are going away from everyone having an individual 5 to 6 page position descriptions, and we are moving to something called SJD, standard job description. Why are we doing that? Because it defines a list of common responsibilities that are shared by other UW employees in similar roles. So a custodian at SMPH may very well have the same SJD as a custodian at the union. They're doing the same job, the same responsibilities. So they are sharing that SJD. It also provides a process for describing a job that matches market. So as Mark mentioned, one of our main goals of why we're doing this project is to be able to have market-informed compensation and benefits. So standard job descriptions, it's a common, very standard modernized practice within compensation now. And we're trying to get there so that we can be market-informed. It also promotes a process for the regular monitoring and comparing our pay structures to that ever-changing and evolving market. So as that market changes and moves up, we will be right there along with it. Here, market includes public and private, higher education peer institutions, as well as private sector. And I get a lot of questions about that. Who is market? Who are we comparing market information to for both compensation and for the benefits? So a lot of higher ed, large and small, public and private. So all of our Big Ten partners, for example, University of Texas, University of Washington, University of North Carolina, Berkeley, Cornell, Syracuse, Yale, a number of them, all out there that we've used in our market comparatives. We've used municipalities, so City of Stevens Point, City of Sun Prairies, Madison, City of Madison, Madison Metropolitan Schools, Sun Prairie Schools, Stevens Point. So a lot of different municipalities and school districts. And then private sector employees like Kohler Company, Kohl's, Land's End, A.O. Johnson, just a number of different institutions. So we have a wide range and a wide spectrum of employers that we are comparing and trying to see how do we stack up with our wages, our compensation, as well as our benefits. So UW employee engagement in the standard job description development, we've had a lot of different ways we've engaged all of you when we're developing the standard job descriptions. Forums, listening sessions, participation. We've had a lot of you help us as subject matter experts. Who knows better what you do on the job than you, right? So you've all been helping us with work groups, committees, surveys, etc., to help us develop the standard job descriptions as we know them today. When we look at the timeline, these are all the different ways and the numbers of people that have helped us from fall of 2017, when we really began the quest for the standard job descriptions, all the way to recent. And those are the different aspects and the numbers of folks that have helped us along the way. So prior to the employee conversations, which will be upcoming, we have had at least 12 non-HR and HR employees who have consulted with us and reviewed and helped to give feedback every single standard job description. And right now, I think out in the library, we have in the area of 768 standard job descriptions. We have had at least 12 folks across campus help us with every single one of those. So there's been a lot of review, a lot of assistance, a lot of experts, all of you and your expert advice helping create these. So let's talk about the SJD and the PD. Standard job description versus position description. What's that going to look like? On the left-hand side in the red is the SJD. A standard job description is a general set of responsibilities not really tied to an incumbent or an employee. It talks about the work performed. So the standard job description is not about individual employees, it's about the actual work performed. The position description is about the work performed, but it is tied to an actual incumbent or an employee. That's a little bit of the difference between the two. So if you look at it in the future, university staff right now have a position description. Academic staff have something called a PVL, or position vacancy listing. In the future, position description, and we're going to talk about how that will work. So the SJD, remember that's that common list of responsibilities. It's usually in the area of 4 to 7 or 8 bullet points. So it is not the 5 to 6 page position description that we currently have. It is 4 to 7 bullet points of the primary tasks that you do. And the new PD will be this 4 to 7 bullet points from the standard job description. In addition, there will be any unique or different responsibilities that you might do in your separate position. So SJD is one to many. All custodians will share an SJD, but the PD is for one person only, so everyone will have a PD. It will consist of your SJD, the summary, the 4 to 7 bullet points, as well as any unique or different responsibilities that you do. So pretty much a one-page, very succinct type of document versus a 5 to 6 page position description that we currently have. So when we look at how did we map all of you to the SJDs and the title, OHR and the TTC project took the first whack at this. And we made an attempt to map every single employee to a title. So for example, an electrician today would be an electrician tomorrow, and that would be an easier map for us. But there are some, the administrative program assistants for one, that are not that easy because we have so many and they do so many different things. So we did our best and moved the process over to the divisional HR staff. They then confirmed our original mapping, or they said, nope, this person should map to this. And they took the second stab at this. They too then said, hey, you know, our managers know best what the people they supervise do on a daily basis. So then it moves down to the managers. And upcoming, the managers will be going through all of the SJDs and making sure they'll either confirm that the mapping that OHR and or divisional HR did is correct and accurate for every employee, or that a change needs to be made. We either need to find a different title in SJD, or perhaps there's a gap and we don't have one for that position and we need to. And then we would go ahead and create that. So that would be upcoming, as well as when those conversations begin in December and go throughout February, the PDs will be developed at that point. So every employee will sit with their manager from December through the end of February, sometime in that time frame, to confirm the title, confirm the standard job description, and develop that PD. And if we remember, the PD is the unique and different job responsibilities. I'd like to introduce Caitlin Howen. Caitlin is on our TTC team.
Hello. Is it on?
It's on.
Good morning. My name is Caitlin Howen. I'm a compensation analyst, and I'm a core project member of the TTC. So I'll just kind of pick up right where Diane left off on. So this is a screenshot of our website and the standard job description library that just went live this morning. Just to kind of give you a few highlights of what you can expect when you go to this page. This is a searchable, there's a keyword search area available where you can search for job titles and summaries. So kind of play around, see if you can find SJDs that may be applicable to you or individuals that work in your area. This is a fluid website and ever-changing library at this point. So we are identifying potential gaps as we map employees to new SJDs, and we want to get it right. So with that, this is the most recent iteration of what we have so far, but know that this document is fluid and changing as we identify needs that we have not yet captured through our engagements thus far. Let me go back one second here. So know that when you're looking at the SJD library and our job framework in the future, jobs are organized by job group and subgroup. So this is a pictorial view of the finance job group. And notice there are multiple subgroups underneath within finance. So when you're looking at the SJD library, this is kind of an important thing to think about when you're trying to find the SJD that's applicable to you. We're not organizing by UDDS, we're not organizing by school, college, or division. It really is based on the industry that you work. So let's say you're an accountant in the athletics department, you would probably still find your job or standard job description under the finance job group. So as you kind of review the SJD library, these are the components that you would expect to see for each SJD: job title, group subgroup, a job summary. Remember, this is a very brief, clear, and concise summary of the job at a high level. The SJD will include the essential job responsibilities, those 4 to 8 bullet points that are standard for an employee who holds or is mapped to that SJD, and the education, which is a preferred minimum. Just dropped and went live today, and OHR and the central office will be updating that SJD library as we identify new gaps and as tweaks and updates are available. So jobs are organized by job, group, and subgroup, and sometimes different jobs have multiple levels that are associated. So we've identified that although we have an academic advisor today, let's say, and we understand that in this type of situation, there's actually 2 jobs going on, both that are academic advisors, just a little bit different in nature. So as you look through the subgroups and you look through the SJD library, you might see some titles that have multiple levels. This is just an indication that the work is different, and that market data would support different titles for folks who map to those SJDs. Lots of titles that we have don't have multiple levels. We've identified at a high level the essential core responsibilities of that SJD are the same. Therefore, we would expect employees to share that SJD. So today we have an academic advisor title. This is just an example of a summary that we have. Not overly clear or concise, fairly lengthy, a little ambiguous, and a little messy, and very difficult from a compensation perspective to map that to market and find some market data to support an appropriate salary. So because of TTC, we have the ability, after implementation, to structure our standard job descriptions in a more clear and concise way that does allow us to map to market at an established frequency. In this specific example, like I had mentioned, there is an academic advisor 1 and an academic advisor 2. When you look at the SJDs and compare the two, the essential responsibilities would be different. So this is definitely different work. Another example is a locksmith. So this is an example of a job summary that we would see today. Very long, lengthy, a little ambiguous, probably doesn't even explain what this specific individual does on a daily basis. And because of TTC and because we want to map these jobs to market, we need to organize them in a more structured way. So this is just a pictorial, don't have to read everything in detail, but this is just the way in which we're organizing the SJD for a locksmith moving forward. Remember, this isn't tailored to a specific employee. These are high-level responsibilities that we would anticipate all locksmiths to perform. To capture those unique responsibilities that this specific, any employees that map to a locksmith do, that information would be included in their position description. So we utilize the SJD, we then add some specific unique responsibilities if it's necessary for that specific incumbent or employee. Another example is the administrative program specialist. So we said that there are many people in this room that share that job title currently. It is what we call a catch-all right now. So lots of different people hold the same title and they do very, very different work. So this is just an example of one of the summaries of someone who holds this specific job title today. And in the future, because of TTC, we've been able to create a whole bunch of other titles that are actually more market-informed and potentially more appropriate for individual incumbents. So, our goal is to map employees to market based on the work that they're doing, and admin program specialist doesn't really allow us to do that. However, these are titles that you would see in the market if you were to look for a job elsewhere, and we want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples from a compensation perspective. So, if you are an admin program specialist today, when you review the standard job description library, these are titles that you'll see that might be more appropriate for you. All right, so the next section we'll talk about business titles. I know Mark had kind of given a preview about what that is and how we'll use those moving forward, but I'll dive into it a little bit more in depth. So what is a business title? We're used to working titles today, and we're going to be calling them business titles in the future. And a business title provides more description to employees' assigned official job title. So when you're looking at the SJD library, those are the job titles that are our official title of record. We would anticipate to see those on our payroll stub. We would see those in our HRS system. But employees, if necessary, have the ability to utilize a business title moving forward. We understand that our campus is very unique, and we have lots of different positions on campus that do very, very specific things. And in some instances, you might need something that's just a little bit more descriptive. That's what our business title is for. It should provide more specific detail about an individual position within the organization or the type of work performed. Business titles are replacing what we call today a working title. So we're going to use a business title. And remember, this is an option. It isn't required. Sometimes an official title of record, like accountant, might be sufficient for an employee's needs. But if a business title is necessary, these are the places that you could use one. In the UW directory, on a department website, on your name badge, an email signature block, stationery, any vacancy announcements. They do not change an employee's title of record or the assigned salary range that that job is mapped to. So business titles do have some guidelines moving forward. A business title cannot duplicate another title of record. It cannot misrepresent the university or the authority of a position. And it cannot use words typically associated with institutional officers. So we do have some guidelines about what can be used, what can and cannot be used. They should provide a more specific description of the job that is done, should add clarity, align with professional and industry best practices, and it needs to be 30 characters or less because of our HRS system. Steps to identifying a business title. So a lot of the working titles that you use today will just move right on over. You can still use that as your business title unless it does not meet the criteria in the upper right-hand corner. Check the SJD library to confirm that the title that you want to use doesn't actually exist as an official title of record. You would want to talk to your supervisor about which working title you want to use during that employee-manager conversation, and then confirm with your HR office if you have any questions. During the employee manager conversation, one of the resources that we have is actually a detailed sheet. It's a one-pager for employees to use that has all of this detailed information, so you will see this moving forward. This is a resource that will also be on our website if it isn't already, Tina, right? So just kind of some examples of how to utilize a business title. So the official title of record in this example at the top is a recreation program coordinator. Possible title or business title that could be used would be coordinator of competitive sports. It's not acceptable in this situation to use a business title of director of recreation because that does inflate and misrepresent the level of authority that this specific job or the level of authority this position has on campus. Another example, outreach specialist. An appropriate business title might be outreach specialist senior. It is not acceptable in this instance to use extension specialist because that's actually already another official title of record. So if you were an extension specialist and want to use that in your working title, we'd probably anticipate that you would map to the extension specialist SJD. And finally, at the bottom here, a lecturer. It's not appropriate to use the business title of professor because that is also an existing title of record. Wouldn't be appropriate in this instance. A few more, sponsored programs, grants, and contracts compliance officer could use the business title of research administration compliance specialist. We wouldn't anticipate them using compliance manager because that's also a different title of record. HR generalist most definitely can use a business title of HR transaction auditor. They cannot use a chief people officer business title because that inflates their level of authority. It wouldn't be appropriate. Okay, so we talked about the kind of guidelines around business titles, and this is something that you'll discuss with your supervisor or manager during those employee manager conversations. So I'll kind of go into detail about what to expect when that starts in next month, I believe. So the goal of the employee manager conversation is to confirm the new title that you as an employee have been mapped to from that SJD library. when you confirm, or when the manager and you sit down and have a conversation, you'll confirm that the SJD that you've been mapped to is appropriate, and then it's the place where you will also be able to provide additional feedback about what you think needs to belong in the position description. Remember, the SJD is not specific to an employee. When we get to the position description, that's where it is more specific and tailored, customized to you and the work that you do on a daily basis. All the conversations should provide each employee an opportunity to ask questions, be listened to, and provide feedback. So this should definitely be an iterative process. You should be having a conversation. It's not just receiving direction or information from your manager. You should be able to provide that feedback. This is a place where you should resolve concerns with job title before implementation, and also a space to ask questions. Depending on the nature of the work that you perform and the work unit in which you reside, these conversations might take a few different forms. So we would anticipate lots of them to be an individual one-on-one conversation with your manager. It might be something that HR takes on the role of, depending on volume, depending on the structure that the division has determined is the most appropriate course of action. It's most likely when employee's title or PD is unique within the unit. So an individual conversation, maybe I'm the only one who is an accountant in my unit. It wouldn't be appropriate for me and my manager to also sit down with anyone else if I'm the only one performing that role of an accountant. Some conversations might be in a group, so with managers or staff, and this would happen most likely when employees share the same SJD and do similar work of other employees within that unit. If there are group conversations, we would anticipate that those would be followed up by individual meetings with a manager or HR, so that each employee has that opportunity to answer or ask specific questions just for them that they might not want to express in a group of employees. So what will you talk about during those employee manager conversations? We'll obviously talk about your new title of record, which is the new standard job description that you've been mapped to. You'll be able to talk about business titles, which I discussed earlier. And you'll talk about your new position description, which is that standard job description that also allows for a little bit of customization based on your specific role. And then you would anticipate talking about next steps. So what to do if you have any concerns about your new title or position description. And then when will those go into effect, which will be in the springtime. There are some things during the employee manager conversations that will not be discussed, and one of them is salary ranges that are associated with those new titles. Like Diane had mentioned, we are still developing our compensation structure, and it actually isn't best practice to discuss compensation when we're also talking about the work that an employee performs. So we want to make sure that we get the work right, and then the compensation structure comes later. Remember that no employee is receiving a reduction in pay as a result of the TTC project, so that is something that we want to convey and express. Salary ranges will come later. And then changes to benefit packages. We're at the central level, we have groups that are formally preparing a request for our leadership and a proposal for benefits and what they think needs to change based on our long-term benefit strategy. There will not be any conversation about benefits at this time because that proposal is still being developed. So steps in the employee conversation. Managers or HR should share the new job title and discuss why that is an appropriate title for the work that's being performed by that individual. They should describe business title guidelines and agree on that business title. We would anticipate that employees who perform similar work in a specific unit that are mapped to the same SJD might have a very similar business title that they share. You'll review the responsibilities that are in the PD, and review any qualifications and physical demands. There's also a task section within the position description. There's an ability to provide more granular detail about not what an employee does, but how they execute those responsibilities on a daily basis. We're very used to a task list right now. Lots of our PVLs and PDs are 5 pages in length because of those granular items. There is still an opportunity and a place to put those if it's necessary. Some units have decided not to use the task list. Some of them are going to rely on it a little bit more heavily, but know that that is an option for you. We should provide opportunity for employee to ask questions about their new title in PD, ask whether the title in the PD accurately describe the position. We should definitely be discussing that in that conversation. And then ask if the employee wants to suggest any other changes. So how can you prepare? This will be coming soon, and we want to make sure that you're informed and feel comfortable during that conversation. Right now, what you should do, we encourage you to visit the library online, which dropped today. Kind of take a look at the options for SJDs to see if you can find the one that might most appropriately convey the work that you do. Remember that that's a fluid document, and as we find and identify gaps, we would be adding things to the SJD library. In November, you'll want to review your current position description, so the one that you actually have today, so kind of familiarize yourself with what's in that. And obviously look at that PD and then look at the SJD library to see if you can make some connections. And then starting in December, we'll have those employee manager conversations where you will review and confirm your new position description moving forward. The manager or HR's role is to confirm the title and standard job description mapping. We're currently working with Human Resources to solidify that mapping right now. Create position descriptions for employees, so we do have specific manager training and HR training that assists managers on how to actually logistically complete that process, whether it be on paper or whether it be through one of our electronic systems that we have created. Their job is to engage employees, of course. This is a place to encourage an open conversation. All managers should budget about 2 to 3 hours of time for employees, and that might not be this first initial conversation that they have, but knowing that there might be a little back and forth in multiple meetings that need to take place. And a manager should most definitely prepare by learning, utilizing the resources that we have on our website. We have a manager toolkit out there as well as an online learning module, which will provide a little bit more detail about how to complete this process. A manager should most definitely be prepared by familiarizing themselves with all the information that's out on our website, talk with employees about TTC, and review those current position descriptions. They should have been doing that in October and now in November. And then they will be in charge of kind of driving that conversation moving forward in December and beyond. This is just a list of the manager resources that we have available. There are the online we have had in-person trainings as well, and we'll continue to do so. That would be a very valuable place, or a very valuable thing for a manager to attend. So here are just a few frequently asked questions that have kind of surfaced as we've kind of worked through this process. Why doesn't my position description include all of my tasks? So remember, as we move towards more market-informed titles, task lists are not going to be included in as much detail as they currently are. It's very difficult to compare apples to apples when we include all of those tasks in someone's position description. We want to describe these position descriptions in clear and concise formats, and task lists get a little bit lengthy. The position description should really summarize the responsibilities. It shouldn't get too much into the weeds. It's not designed to capture all the tasks that someone performs on a daily basis. Like I'd mentioned, market data and trying to move towards a more market-informed structure. Tasks isn't what we would see in other market data. So when we talk about market influence titles, comparing apples to apples at the high level of these essential responsibilities is more important from a compensation lens. So another frequently asked question, what is the salary range associated with my new title? So the current phase of the project is really focusing on the work, not so much the compensation that's associated with it. We're still developing our compensation structure, so that information just isn't yet available, but will become available in spring when we go live. Remember, your salary will not change as a result of the TTC project. And how does the TTC project clarify my career path? So right now, because our standard job descriptions don't actually always explain the work that's actually being performed. It's very difficult for an employee to see where their potential next career move may be. So the TTC is really working towards clear, concise, standard job descriptions. And after we go live, we will be starting to develop a more robust career development guide. So more maps about potential knowledge, skills, and abilities that are needed for other SJDs if you're looking for a new opportunity on campus. So we first need to organize our SJDs accordingly so that we can compare them and see what would be an appropriate career path or a career option for an employee moving forward. How will I be able to progress or promote in the future? So you will continue to have these opportunities to promote and progress moving forward. Diane's going to go into a little bit more about what those two terms mean as we go live. As you gain knowledge, skills, and abilities within your specific title, we would anticipate an employee to progress through the salary range that's assigned to that specific title. There are lots of current pay adjustment options that we have will continue to exist in the future. We have lots of base building compensation adjustments that are available, as well as lump sum adjustments, and those will continue to be there. There's an ability to also promote to a different position moving forward with a higher salary range. And then we also have on our website a micro-learning about promotion and progression and the differences, and we would encourage all of you to go out to our website and take a look. A little bit more information there. Another question that we've seen, will my benefits change? So right now your benefits will not change. We're really developing that long-term benefit strategy that is not prepared and ready at this time. Our proposal from TTC then goes up to UW leadership, and they get to make the decision on what would be most appropriate for us as an organization as we move forward and change with the market. Remember, our goal is to enhance UW benefits, not take them away. So stay tuned as we develop that proposal, and we'll have more information and share it as it becomes available. So this is just a list of employee resources that are out there. Feel free to take a look and visit our website. Lots of this information is really preparing you for those employee manager conversations. So we've got some information about title guidelines. There's an online module about business guidelines, we have an online module which describes the difference between tasks versus responsibilities. Progression promotion is out there. There's information about the appeals process, and there's lots of videos and forum recordings that we would encourage you to take a look at as well. So the appeals process, Mark mentioned this, that if an employee disagrees with the job title that they have been mapped to, there is a formalized process that they can go through to see if that needs to change. We would expect the first step would be that informal resolution. So if we would expect you to start and have that conversation with your manager, and hopefully you can come to an agreement based on the duties that you perform in your specific role. If an agreement cannot be reached, we do have these other steps 2, 3, 4, and 5. Mark, our CHRO, really does have that final say as to if an employee is mapped to the correct SJD and has the correct job title moving forward. There is a panel on step 4 with some governance representatives, and they would be on that job classification appeals panel. Most of these we would anticipate could be resolved at that step 1 in an informal way. So appeals process is timing. During those employee manager conversations, we would expect you to work together to resolve any questions or concerns that you have. An official notification of your new title comes in the spring. And then after that, after that receiving of the official notification is when an appeals process would start, if it's necessary. Okay, and with that, I'll hand it back to Diane. She'll provide a little bit more information about promotion and progression. So.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. So promotion and progression in today's world mean one and the same, but they are really two very different concepts. So today, the way we handle promotion progression is someone starts at a salary grade 4 at like an entry level, and by the end of year 2, they receive a promotion or progression and typically a pay increase. A lot of times this is based on time on the job. Now, many divisions have different criteria for how to get that, like some performance criteria, but many do not. So sometimes it's just simply based on time on the job. Then after year 7, you again promote in today's world. So you would go from an entry to a no prefix to an advanced or senior. And that's how we do it today. A lot of times, again, it's based on time here on the job. Many times divisions have different ways and different performance standards that need to be met in addition to time on the job. But going forward, we're not going to have the entry, the no prefix, the senior, the advanced. We're not going to have that. What we are going to have is a different way to look at and consider promotion and progression. So going forward at implementation in the spring, promotion is vertical advancement in your career, okay? So it's up the vertical axis, and progression is horizontal advancement in your career. So when we think of promotion, it's looking at a vertical advancement to a new job. So a new job title, new responsibilities. The duties are focused on the work performed. It's market influenced. Again, that's our goal, is to be market informed, right? And it's not based solely on time and seat. It's promotion to a new job, new title, new responsibilities. The other one is progression, and that is on the horizontal axis, and that's how you advance in your current role within the same job title, same job responsibilities, but you can progress up the range. So when we look at this slide on the left-hand side, it talks about promotion, and you can see there's grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. That would mean every one of those grades is a different job, different title with different responsibilities, and you can promote to those. On the other side is 1, which gives you the minimum, the midpoint, and the maximum. That's one range where you're advancing within your same range, same title, same job responsibilities. So promotion, again, is that vertical advancement, whereas progression is a horizontal advancement through the range of your pay grade. So here's some examples. Promotion after implementation in the spring, we have an Academic Advisor 1 hired in here, and there's a new job, the Academic Advisor 2. They can promote to that job, but the Academic Advisor 2 has different job title, different job responsibilities, and is on a different grade. You can see it went from grade 4 to grade 5. So they are promoting in that vertical manner. The next one is progression. So we have John Bascom here. He's coming in at Academic Advisor 1, salary grade 4. And John has made the choice he would like to do advancement this way, meaning he wants to progress through advancement in his career. So John can do that. He stays with the same job, the same title, the same responsibilities on salary grade 4 throughout his career here at UW. And as you can see, he's getting pay raises along the way because he's advancing horizontally or progressing horizontally. Bucky Badger is at the Academic Advisor 2. He as well would prefer to stay at Academic Advisor 2, and he as well is advancing horizontally throughout his career, getting pay raises by progressing horizontally. So promotion and progression are two different things in our upcoming world. Promoting meaning new job title, new job responsibilities. Progression meaning same job title, same job responsibilities. So if we look at the Academic Advisor 1 and the Academic Advisor 2, the Academic Advisor 2 would have to do everything that the Academic Advisor 1 has in their SJD. In addition, they would have 2 additional responsibilities. So perhaps they have to manage a budget and supervise people. Those are the additional things that would cause that promotion with new job responsibilities, and new title. So as Caitlin mentioned, we will still have pay progression components in place. So you're wondering, how do you progress through the range if we don't promote to a new position? You can progress with the things like base adjustments, there's pay plan, there's performance adjustments, there's market adjustments, parity, meaning salary internal alignment, and retention type adjustments. We also have all of the lump adjustments that we currently have. So those are the pay components, but the ways you can progress throughout your range. The other thing we're doing as we build our salary structure, we are building broad enough ranges so people can have that continual progression through their range without needing to promote to a different job, different title, if that is not the career path you choose to take. So benefits. Benefits are equally important. I think I went dead there for a minute. And so what we did is we took a two-pronged approach to the benefits portion. One of them is the BVA, or the Benefits Valuation Analysis. That is a study that we had Mercer, who is a compensation and benefits consultant expert. We had them take a look at our UW benefit offerings and match them up to market. And remember, we talked about all the public and private higher ed, the private sector, the municipality market. We had them match all of our benefit offerings up to see how do we stack up. Are UW-Madison benefits as good as these others? Are they competitive? Are they below? Are they above? Where do we stand with our benefits? So they did that, and we have that data. The second thing that we did in the benefits world is we had the benefits preferences survey. How many of you took that survey? Awesome. Yeah, more than 50%. That's great. So overall, UW-Madison itself had a 54% return rate. System-wide, it was 47, but because UW-Madison is such a large portion of the system, we were 54%, and that's great. That's a lot of feedback from all of you. Our goal behind having that survey in the first place was to find out, what do all of you value for employee benefits? What is it that you would like to see as far as benefit enhancements? Because remember, we're not decreasing or eliminating any benefits throughout TTC. We are only looking at enhancing our UW-Madison benefit package. So that was the goal behind it. You all gave us great feedback and information, not only on the survey, but we had 13,768 comments. And that was wonderful because we got a lot of information. So the current work stream that's going on with that right now is we are taking the compiled data from the BVA, from the Mercer study, from the Benefits Preferences Survey, that was our study. We're taking those two compiled data sets, and we have a group of benefit experts that are going through that, making recommendations and options that will be submitted to our leadership, to the Chancellor, for looking at long-term benefit enhancements. So when we talk about going live in the spring with our salary structure and our job framework, we won't expect to see all kinds of benefits falling at that point because, you know, when you add benefits, you have to have a system or a software tool that can administer those. So there are a lot of changes that have to go on behind the scenes if we enhance or add benefits. But what you will be able to talk about is, what are some of those recommendations? In our long-term benefit strategy, what does that look like? So we are putting forth a strategy for enhancing our benefits incrementally over the next number of years. So that's one of the work streams that's currently going on. What benefits are on the table for consideration? The ones on the left-hand side, we've termed it supplemental benefits. Things like paid time off. Who doesn't like additional paid time off? We got a lot of information in our survey that all of you would really like additional paid time off. Flex work schedules, the ability to be able to go to a child's Christmas program, soccer game, etc. So flex work schedules and the ability to have the potential for somebody to pick up for you to be able to do that. Parental leave. Looking at our BVA results, it looks like some of our institutions, our competing institutions, do offer some level of parental leave. And it came out loud and clear in our survey that you all would really value some paid parental leave. So that's definitely up for discussion. Tuition assistance. We heard loud and clear from all of you that you would like tuition assistance not only for you as the employee, but for family members, spouse, children, etc. So we are also discussing that. Other non-statutory benefits, like we heard that people would like short-term disability, long-term disability. Pet insurance came out, right? People wanted pet insurance. So there are other non-statutory benefits that we are considering when we're doing this analysis of all the different compiled data sets. What is not under consideration for benefit enhancements going forward? Well, it would be our statutory benefits. The statutory benefits are those benefits that are administered by ETF, governed by the state of Wisconsin, and a little bit of off limits for us at this point because we are not allowed by state statute to change those. That would be the Wisconsin retirement, the state health insurance, the dental, the vision, the life insurance. Those plans we are not able to change. One other item to say that is not under consideration for change, because I get a lot of questions on this, we decided to add it in, is the sick leave conversion. That will not change. We will still have our sick leave conversion as we currently enjoy. I'd like to introduce Don Shute, who will be talking about resources.
There we go. So we are simulcasting in another room, and I just want to make sure that they can also hear. So when we get to the question session, we're going to ask you to speak to the microphone for the questions so that they can also hear it. But just before that, I'm going to talk a little bit about training and other resources. We have a lot that has been going on. One of the things that we have recognized is, and I've had people come up to me and say, Don, I can't believe how much this is creating anxiety for me. Or, man, Don, I'm really stressed out by this whole talk about title and total compensation. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that you were aware of, and we're actually going to have a spot, these groups of these offices are all working together to create a little link off of the TTC homepage that's called Where to Turn. And Where to Turn is if you feel like you're stressed by this or it's creating some anxiety or your reaction to it is greater than you anticipated. Some people have said, I knew I'd be a little stressed out, but man, I'm super stressed out by this. There are resources on campus that we want you to be aware of, and that they are also working with us to make sure they're available for you. First is the Employee Assistance Office, and that includes Life Matters. Life Matters is a new program that came out, offers 24/7 service. You can reach out to them. They have people you can talk with about that. Employee Assistance provides confidential workplace consultation and counseling for anybody who's interested. We have the Career and Education Planning through Division of Continuing Studies. Other people have said, Don, this has really caused an opportunity for me to think about the job I'm in. And is that the job I want to be in? Is this the direction I want to be going? So if you have something that you're starting to wonder about, gosh, is this the job or the field or the area I want to be in? DCS has some career and education planning that was sponsored about 2 years ago from Vice Chancellor Heller to really look at employee career development. And they have career development counselors specifically assigned just for UW-Madison employees. So that's available to you in case you weren't aware of that. Also on here is the Ombuds Office. They provide confidential guidance on workplace concerns. Another place to turn if you want help navigating a system or understanding maybe how systems work. And lastly, there's a whole bunch of different professional development opportunities, and certainly on our resources on the website, which you'll see a little bit more about in a second. But these are all places, if you're feeling more stressed, if this is provoking a reaction you didn't anticipate or it's greater than you thought, there are places for you to turn, and we just want you to be aware that those are out there. In terms of training, already mentioned, manager training is out there. If you're a manager, supervisor, there's some training online that's available now. There's some supplemental training that'll be in person, and you can watch for those dates as they emerge if you're a manager, supervisor, just to be prepared for the conversations. One of our key elements in the conversations is that we want every employee both to have a conversation and to feel like they can have a frank discussion with their manager or supervisor or HR person about that. And so we know, and you saw in the slides that it talks about hopefully the manager and supervisors at HR are going to be listening to what you're bringing forward. And it's that moment maybe that you can have a conversation about the work that you're doing or the way that you're doing your work, and making sure that the intent of the process has not been to change the nature of your work. It's been to really identify in a way that connects with other jobs in the marketplace. There's also going to be some division-specific training. Training that we put together, materials that we put together is available for divisions to go out and do some smaller groups. We also have a group called the Professional Outreach Network, and that has somebody from every school, college on it, and they have access to training materials. So if you're going to any kind of an event, or you have a meeting, or you'd like to bring some materials out, both the resources page, and if you need other supplemental training material, please just let us know. We'd be glad to help you out. The resource library out there, mentioned that already. One of the key things that we have are fact sheets, and there's a sample here. Fact sheets, what stays the same, what's changing. We also post the videos. This will be recorded. I think tomorrow it'll be recorded, And so the forum will be then shared on the TTC website. The other thing we should have mentioned up front was that also the slides will be available. So some of you taking pictures of the slides. I apologize you wasted your space on that and your time on that. The slides will be available so you can get really clear, exact pictures of everything that's going on. Currently on the library, there's a whole bunch of different pieces, but what's staying the same, what is changing has been one that's been pretty popular. People are saying, kind of wondering what's going to happen, what are all the big differences. We try to summarize those in different sheets. The other one that we know is going to be of interest is the progression and promotion. And it really summarizes what Diane went through just a few minutes ago. These are out there. They're available for you. If there's a resource that you think you need that we haven't created yet, please don't hesitate to let us know. We would be glad to figure out how we can put that together and share that with you. Lastly, here's the TTC website. There's the logo. If you go on the UW homepage and just type T under the search button, just type TTC, it will pop it right up as well. It'll give you the link to it. So not hard to find. It's out there. It's available. We also have some more all-campus forums. I appreciate every single one of you who made it here today. Some people on the way in were asking how long did it take. People are saying an hour and a half. You know, anybody that came today deserves some special award just for making it here. Because, man, it was tragic. Yeah. Or quick round of applause for all of you attending. That was huge. So I appreciate the massive effort it took to get here. There are some other times in case some of your colleagues didn't make it here today. You can let them know. We're doing a number of them this week. We also have a online forum next week because we have a number of employees at UW-Madison who don't work on campus, who work all over the state, and that's important for us to make sure that they also can get the information. Just to give you a look ahead, we also are already planning for the February all-campus forums. You don't need to memorize these dates. Again, the slides will be out there. We always think of our forums in segments of 2. I can tell you right now the focus of the February one is going to be a lot more on salary and how we figure that out in progression and promotion and how those different pieces come together. And also then preparing for the letter that you'll get that'll talk with you about here's the summary of the conversations you've had up to the point at which it's implemented. So with that, we are moving to questions and answers, and we have a little bit of time for questions and answers. Again, we'll ask some of the speakers to come back up, and I'll work my way your way. Tina, we can see if we can get this other microphone to work. It is super important. I hope she works here. Or I'm certainly responsible for a speak. There was one right in the middle here. I got to go first, and then I will come back and find everybody. Also remember that there are some index cards that are there. If you want to write notes on those, we'll come around and pick those up. Thank you for coming to me rather than make me crawl over.
So I know that you have said really clearly that salaries are not going to change, and that our job titles are going to be connected to marketplace. My personal belief is that workers across the whole country are kind of taking a hit as far as duties and salaries. So it seems to me that a person could end up with a job title, a job description, and be at the very far end of the salary range, thus putting a worker potentially at risk for an organization who says, you are a really expensive X, where I could hire somebody new in over here. Like, how is that going to be addressed for people?
All right, thank you for that question. I'll take a try at that. One of the things that we did mention earlier is that we are creating broader ranges. So our goal with that is so people aren't hitting that top of that salary cap and not having any room to move. In addition, one of the other things we are doing is we are creating a center of excellence such that we will be, instead of waiting 30 years to be doing this again, we will be doing it every single year. So as the market evolves and we're putting people on that broad range, we're moving with the market such that part of the threat that's will be able to make
So we have So she'll repeat the question then, so then the other room. Apologize, the mic died as she was going.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, this is a lot better. The job title, the question is will the job title be based on what they're doing now or what they were doing in the past? Is that correct? Right. Your job title that we are mapping to and we are developing the standard job descriptions are descriptions of the work that you are currently doing. So as such, what the work you're doing today should be described in your standard job description as well as the accompanying position description.
Hi, thanks you for having these forums. And I hope everyone has time today to honor and remember the veterans and also the words of power that brought armistice today.
Thank you.
It's important. My question is, we're talking about retention values. I started off in the university staff career ladder, and it sometimes often ends up being in this no credit for work actually done. On one hand, I'm a little insulted that all of the office associates are looped into one career, because 70% of my original position was gathering information for research grants, working closely with RSP to learn what the rules were, and so my progression would have been more up in the research and sponsored programs. And I know, yada, 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 we all have about the same kind of job description. I also find that insulting and a lack of knowledge of what office assistants are expected to have responsibility for. It's not in the job description, but the individual departments and schools are free to determine what those things are. And even though some schools are given slack because, well, they just expect more from their employees, those employees are not paid more, even though they're respected for it. So how is across the university going to be compared as well as across the market? The other question with benefits is, what's the retention value of, in order to progress up, that we have to give away the hard-fought benefits that we have if we switch from university staff or from non-exempt to exempt. I mean, time is more precious than money, and university staff's not really paid enough to put money away for retirement, so we rely on that. And to have that all taken away, or my choice to get promoted, means I give it away. You know, how does that all work in, and in the future, how is that going to be taken into consideration?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Let me address the benefits piece first. You bring up a good topic, because one of the goals that we haven't really discussed here of the TTC is to standardize our benefit packages over time. That won't happen immediately, but for the very reason you bring up, when people want to transfer from a university staff job to an academic staff job, in many cases you may lose benefits. One of the things we are doing is we are working toward how do we standardize the two benefit packages so that they come together without the loss, so we're not looking at anyone losing benefits, but standardizing them such that if you want to promote to a different position, you could do that without the loss of benefits. So that is one of the goals we are looking for. It will be included in the end-of-year recommendations that we sent to the Chancellor as to how we could accomplish that. But we are working toward that goal. So that should help.
I think something to clarify too, Diane, when I showed the subgroups and the job groups, those are just the way we, from an administrative perspective, to organize jobs. That doesn't mean that if you currently work in a job title that lives in the finance group, that you can't move to a job that is located in administration. So that doesn't mean that those are the only options for an employee to stay within their specific job group assignment. We would anticipate employees to most definitely move based on the type of role that they take.
We have a question here, then there, then over there.
Hi, thanks for all the information. Your references to progression and promotion and also the task list make me wonder, more as a manager, I think, than an employee, is could you speak a little bit to the intersection of TTC with the PMDP process and how those two interact?
Yes. Right now, we are not going to be having an actual tool interface between PMDP. Not everybody on campus uses PMDP. We aren't going to have that. But long term, we are looking at how do we incorporate interfaces with the tools to the TTC. With that being said, when you're looking at your performance goals and things that you're developing and the tasks within PMDP, you would certainly use the new SJDs and PDs to develop those criteria.
In the back.
Are we on?
Hi, thank you for taking the time to do this and informing
Welcome.
us about this information. So with the current salary, pay, promotion policy that we have installed, I've just noticed that colleges, schools, and departments have a lot of freedom on how they choose to do the pay. So I'm just kind of wondering, when the TTC policies get implemented, is that going to be the same, that they get to have that much flexibility in determining how much your base pay is going to be?
Well, schools, colleges, and divisions will still have the ability to make those determinations, but we are implementing a few new things. And probably the biggest impact thing we are implementing in the salary administration guidelines, we are putting a clause in there so that OHR, meaning we, will be providing with our schools, colleges, and divisional HR staff notification on a regular basis on who is progressing, who's promoting, who is getting those increases, because sometimes it can get lost. In addition to that, then, OHR, we will be doing an audit to make sure that we are watching how people are progressing and making sure that somebody isn't getting left behind. Yes?
So these aren't just recommendations or highly encouraged, like these are mandated and implemented?
These meaning?
Like the different salary-based pays or how you progress and...
Well, you know, some of them, like the pay plan, people get as long as you meet the criteria. Other things as far as market or retention or any of those types of pay progression components, those are determined by the school, college, or division, but we are going to be reviewing those, auditing those, and figuring out why people aren't. If someone is left behind and is not progressing, we will know that and be able to work with that, whereas currently that does not happen.
There's a follow-up right here.
Yeah, I think my question, I was thinking the same thing, is that in some, like for example, I'm just academic advisor, and one, there's a minimum, but in some schools they start at, you know, let's say 40,000, and another school they'll start at 30,000, even though the base is like 28. I'm just making up numbers, but the jobs are the same. So how will that be? I think that was what she was getting at.
You know, in our new structure, part of what we do is we have criteria or guidelines on how people are hired in, right? Somebody would be hired at the 25 percentile on the range if they come in as a brand new person without a lot of experience, with going to the 50 percentile at hire if they have a lot of experience in that position. Rarely would they go to the 75th percentile and upon hire unless they are sincerely an expert, right? So we will have guidelines, and that's part of those salary administration guidelines that we will be promoting across school, college, and division. That's why we develop those, so that there is some consistency and some leveling for how that happens.
Diane, I think I had the same question written down, and I've got a couple more if I can just kind of close the loop here. It says, are supervisors mandated to do the conversations with employees about their new position title? So we would anticipate all employees who are affected by the TTC would have that conversation. They might take different forms depending on the unit that you work in. So it might be you and your supervisor, it might be you and HR, it might be you, your supervisor, and HR. Me, Mark, and Diane, we can all get together and have my conversation, right? So it might take different forms. But yes, if you are affected by TTC, that is anticipated and will happen. Another question on the same card. If we have a mic, John.
No, we do have a person that's been waiting over here for a little bit.
I just want to start by getting a clarification on the conversation between employees and managers regarding the position descriptions before I ask my questions. As I understand it, we're going to sit down with our managers, and we're going to have a discussion as to what our position description is going to be under TTC. Is that correct?
Correct. You would have the ability to review the SJD that you've been mapped to, which your local HR has assisted with, and then at that time, yes, you will see the SJD mapping and then confirm it, or depending on if it's appropriate or not, and then add those position descriptions.
So my question is then, in order to have an informed conversation with our manager in determining the SJD and the PD, why is the salary range not going to be discussed in those meetings? If we're going to be assigned a position description or a standard job description for our job, shouldn't we be able to know what the range is of where we could move through that progression process within our job description before we agree to be assigned to that job description?
Diane, you want me to continue? Okay, so it actually is very best practice to, when we're looking at standard job descriptions and the work that's actually being performed, to be blind to compensation. That is best practice within compensation through all different types of industries. And that's actually advantageous on both ways. So for an employee, it's advantageous so that their manager or supervisor isn't thinking about budget when they're looking at the work that's actually being performed. And then from an employee perspective, we don't want to have an employee map to an inappropriate SJD and then later on not be able to complete those essential responsibilities. So naturally, if we all knew what the compensation ranges were based on the job, we would naturally select the higher one, right? However, we don't want to be biased as opposed to what our budget can do, and we don't want to be biased and then potentially not be able to perform and execute the responsibilities that are assigned. So it actually is best practice to be blind of compensation for a variety of reasons.
So I do want to go here. She's been waiting very patiently.
Okay, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Thank you for hosting the forum today. Will you please speak to the convention for the required the education piece of things that says preferred instead of required? The example that you provided before with the academic advisor, it said bachelor's degree preferred, where most of the advisors on this campus are master's prepared. There are master's degree programs across the state and even at this university that people accomplish to have this position. And I worry about recruitment, and I worry about, and this is probably across other positions too, but I also worry about kind of the devaluation of certain fields. So can you speak to the education?
Yeah, good question. So on the SJD library, if you take a look, you had mentioned that it indicates an education of preferred minimum. That is really just a recommendation from the central office. Remember that we have to share our SJD library with all of UW system, and they might have different candidate pools based on their location. So an SJD for academic advisor here in Madison also needs to be shared with those up at UW Superior. These are really just preferred minimums and the baseline. Obviously, if there is a legality with regards to an SJD, like physician, for example, that will say required. You need to have an MD to operate and be a physician. You need to have a JD to operate and be an attorney. Those are hard stops. These are very much preferred and recommendations. At the recruitment level, you have the ability to change. Correct. We're still working on the the question is, do you have the ability during recruitment to change what that preferred minimum is? Yes, we're still working out the logistics of how that works, but that's really just kind of a check and balance from an internal perspective. So if on the SJD, let's say the minimum preferred says high school diploma, and yet at recruitment we see that a unit is asking for a terminal degree, that would probably be a red flag that maybe they're not using the appropriate SJD. What type of candidate are you really looking for? Really more of that gut check and balance, but a recommendation. Okay. And yes, back there.
Hi. So my question is in regards to what things will change versus stay the same. So one of the things that you mentioned after implementation is one thing that will not change is employee categories, so university staff and academic staff. Well, what I'm wondering is if after I'm told what my standard job description is and I go through the library and look through different standard job descriptions and job titles, things like that, and I strongly feel that the one that fits mostly with my current job duties and responsibilities, things like that, fit in that is a job description and title that is a different employee category. How would that process work?
Yes, and so the employee category, of course, is tied to your employee benefits. So it goes back to that idea that we have 2 leave packages with university staff and academic staff. So should that be the case, we have behind-the-scenes mechanisms for making sure you do not lose your benefits. So when we say employee category doesn't change, it's based on the benefit eligibility criteria. You would not, so if you would qualify for a SJD that is an academic staff, but your university staff now, you would not lose your university staff leave package.
We are just a reminder, you did also get a half sheet. That's an evaluation. I know we're getting close to the end, but so if you would choose to leave, if you'd fill out that, we'd be terrifically happy about that.
Hi, thank you for today's forum. I'm curious if there's multiple appeals for a similar title. Will there be any response from the top versus it happening in isolation? Will they be reporting to the top and then maybe something change from the top?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one of the things we are planning to do. So along the way of an appeals process, if we see patterns, right, we see trending, not just onesie, twosie, but we see some trends of similar appeals, we definitely will be looking at that. Do we have a gap, right? Are we missing a title we need to make? What do we need to do? So we definitely have that on our radar screen. Yes.
Time for one more question. Right, then what we would do, we are right at time, we're at 10:30. I want to say thank you again so much for attending. What happens with all the questions that were on note cards that don't get answered is that we compile those and then we put all the answers to those questions back out in one of our documents that's called FAQ. And we do it by quarter. So we'll be collecting them all this week, and then once we're done, we will make sure that all those questions that were on the note cards that haven't been answered will be answered on the website. And if you have specific questions that are more immediate, please feel free to email TTC. You can go to the webpage and grab it right there, the address to email. So thank you again for coming. Again, we have other events this week. Have a good week. Have a safe drive to wherever you're going now.